Well, let's take that one forward, and we are joined now by Deputy Defence Minister General Bantu Holomisa this evening. General, good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. You hear the spokesperson of the presidency there, Mr. Maphwanya. And one of the things that he talks about is the visit. We feel one can say that the visit was ill-advised. Not just that, but the comments that suggest support for Iran by the country. I think initial thoughts on just finding out about the exchange between the defense chief and defense leadership in Iran. When you found out about it, were you aware of the visit, DM?
No, I was not aware about the visit. Normally, the Minister of Defense is the person who authorizes such trips outside the country. So the last word has been said by the presidency, and the presidency is the custodian of our foreign policy. So there's nothing one can contest on that. But what we should be waiting for is to either hear from the minister herself addressing this issue, or alternatively wait for General Maphwanya to come back and tell the nation how did he go there, what was the purpose. I think since now the matter is in the open, I think he should be given an opportunity to respond openly and be transparent about it.
Just from the Department of Defense, what comments like these, a visit like this does for perhaps possible vulnerabilities within our own defense. So I'm talking about where the damage possibly could be within the SANDF and the department, in your view.
Unfortunately, we don't know. I don't know what was the purpose of his visit. It's only the minister who would be in the know. If he did not ask a permission to leave from the minister, then he will have to swim in his own stew.
And what would that mean? If he did not share that information with the minister, would that mean that we need to then relook at his position and that he should be removed?
It's still too early to say so. All I'm saying, if he went abroad without the permission from the president or the minister, he will have to face the music and explain on what basis did he even have to utter such words which are creating controversy.
Do you think that this is a matter of national security, considering just the debate that has been had even with our relations with the US, the United States of America, for instance, having talked a lot about South Africa's relationship with Iran? Is this a security issue when you look at the global geopolitical elements of it?
You see, we have to be honest on some of these debates. The USA is speaking to its own opponents, or people or countries perceived to be the opponents of USA. They meet every now and again, whether it's Russians, it's Chinese, it's Iranians, and so on and so on. South Africa has got diplomatic ties with Iran, and we have bilateral commissions and agreements signed. And the defense is no exception. And there are other state departments in South Africa which are dealing with Iran on a daily basis, like in the energy. So I don't know whether we should not wait for the general to come and explain himself, but these international relations, if we are not careful, we have to be firm, like Mandela used to say, no one is going to tell us who our friends should be. If we deviate from that position, we are going to be vulnerable to be tossed around by every Tom, Dick, and Harry. So all I'm saying, wait for General to come back, and then, if possible, you should request the minister to explain whether she did give an approval or an approval for the general to travel there. But in terms of our relationships and bilateral agreements with other countries, no one should be dictating terms who must we speak to, not to speak to, as a matter of principle.
You know, what you talk about is something that just if you look at the interaction that was had between General Maphwanya and defense leadership in Iran, a lot of the conversation being on shared views around colonialism and such, and speaking to the point that you've made. But as you talk about bilateral agreements, I wonder if this is an opportunity, also for the sake of the viewer, General, to clarify just how much interaction, and I'm talking now from a resources and knowledge sharing point of view, we do have that are shared bilateral agreements with defense of Iran and defense of South Africa. What agreements are in place at the moment?
The agreements we have between the USA, Iran, and South Africa and other countries is mainly based on cooperating around the issues of training. The other opportunities which are also available to these countries is to do joint exercises as and when. We have been to other countries sending our troops to do joint exercises with them. And then also here in South Africa, some countries would come and dock in our harbors, and they do joint exercises with our Navy, as well as the Air Force. So there's nothing new here. All what we should be, which I think is worrying people, is the remarks which were uttered by a general who is expected to come back and confirm whether he did say what is circulating in the media. And then, but as I've said, the president has had the last word on the issue. He is the custodian of our foreign policy together with DECO. And if the general has crossed the line, that matter will be dealt with by the powers that be.
Any interaction so far with DERCO? And I'm talking about what that arrival of General Maphwanya will look like, if it will involve a sit-down with your own ministry as well as DERCO, so we don't have an idea of what that program is set to look like, General?
Well, at this stage, we don't know. Firstly, secondly, I said we don't know who sent him there. As a matter of principle, normally rather, a head of defense would have briefed the minister or sent by the minister. But at this stage, it looks as though even the defense is trying to distance itself from him. But let's wait.
Yeah, we'll be watching closely, General. I want to shift gears, if you'll allow me, before we release you. You've also given the media a statement today as the Deputy Minister of Defence and Military Veterans, wherein you say the doors of the national dialogue should remain open. We are just but hours away from seeing this convention take place. And perhaps if you'd like, you can speak to us as Deputy Minister and then put on your hat as leader of UDM, if you can do both those balancing acts. But the importance of, as you say, having the doors remain open for tomorrow, DM.
This situation reminds me of the same period in 1993-94 election, where there were certain parties which were boycotting the negotiations. But some of them ended up participating in those elections precisely because the doors were never closed for them. In this case, there are people who would have loved to be present in tomorrow's dialogue, but some could not make it. Others boycotted it, stating their reasons. At this stage, this phase is voluntarily. So it's up to them if they want to, if they don't. But the train is about to leave the station. And once it moves forward, I don't think it will be easy to stop it. Here, the key is to look at the road we've traveled since 1994. There are good things which we have done. We can acknowledge those things. But there are embarrassing things which should have been addressed. Here is a good example. When the Afrikaners were ascending to power in 1948, they were poor like us. But the state intervened and addressed their economic problems and socio-economic related problems. Today, they are owning land. Today, they are also owning businesses. Fast forward, 30 years from now, you cannot even point how many black industrialists have we produced. So this is a challenge, which means, therefore, that we did not finish the discussions on economy during CODESA, on land. Everyone was here because at that stage, when Rudzani was assassinated, the negotiators pressed panic buttons and demanded a date for election. But the good thing about that abrupt stopping of negotiating is that some of the areas, like in the economy, the resources of the country, and everything else are contained in the Constitution. But the Constitution, have we understood what it meant for those clauses? Did we produce policies which would address the backlogs and imbalances of the past? And of course, the whole program, what is coming out clearly is that the struggle was hijacked, or those programs which were supposed to have been addressed was hijacked by scrupulous business people and politicians. To make things worse, we did not address the issues related to economy, empowering our people across the board. We only focus only to the elite, to help the elite. But now this thing is coming back to haunt us. And this is a country where in the last 30 years, we have not even had a consensus on what kind of macroeconomic policy should we have or follow. So the dialogue, therefore, has to come up with terms of reference, and also if there are resolutions which may necessitate the amendments to certain legislation, that process or those resolutions should be referred to Parliament for ratification in order to address the plight of South Africans. There's no time to waste and political posturing. We are running late.
General Bantu Holomisa, an absolute honor having you on, and thank you so much for, I think what every South African can agree is a reflection on just where we were 30 years ago when dialogue was so important to transition in our country, and now 31 years on, the day before the convention, General Bantu Holomisa saying, well, let's remember and learn from the gaps of discussions in CODESA, and then saying, develop terms of reference over the weekend and take resolutions that come out of this dialogue to Parliament. Let's have a plan of what happens with recommendations at the end of it. He is, of course, Deputy Minister of Defence and Military Veterans, speaking to us this evening. Once again, Major General Bantu Holomisa.